Hello, and welcome to the virtual Scandinavia House and to our Nordic literature and translation series with the Land of Short Sentences featuring the author Stine Pilgaard, translator Hunter Simpson, and it will be moderated by Shimanto Reza. The Land of Short Sentences is out in English translation from March 1st by World Editions, and a big thank you to them for helping make this event possible. This talk is in celebration of the American Scandinavian Foundation's annual translation competition, which award prizes for outstanding translations of poetry, fiction, drama, and literary prose written by a 20th or 21st century Nordic author. The 2021 Leif Sjöberg Prize was awarded to Hunter Simpson for his translation from the Danish of Stine Pilgaard's Mida I sekundet, or Land of Short Sentences. The Leif and Inger Sjöberg Prize has been given to an individual whose literature translations from a Nordic language have not been previously published. This talk is being recorded and will be available on our website, scandinavius.org, as well as our YouTube page. Feel free to ask questions in the chat box. We'll get to them towards the end of the program. And I'll also put a link to where one can purchase the book. Stine Pilgaard is a graduate of the Danish Writers Academy and the University of Copenhagen. Her first novel, Mimorsia, My Mom Says, was a critical and commercial success, earning a nomination for the prestigious Danish Broadcasting Corporation Literature Prize and securing the author a Bodil and Jorgen Munk Christensen Award for the debut author. In 2016, Pilgaard received the Danish Libraries Writers Award and nominated for the Danish Readers Book Award for Lejlighedssange, or Song for Special Occasions. The Land of Short Sentences was an instant bestseller in Denmark, where it was released to critical acclaim as well. Hunter Simpson is originally from North Carolina, and he lives in Copenhagen. His first debut is The Land of Short Sentences, and he is working on My Mother Says as the second published translation. And moderating today is Shimanto Reza, who is a freelance editor and translator living in Italy. He mostly translates between his mother tongues of Dutch and English, and he writes short pieces in Dutch. So please welcome everyone.
Shall I take it from here?
Yes, please.
All right. So welcome everyone. We're really happy to be celebrating the publication of this wonderful book, which I also got to work on, which was a pleasure with Hunter. Yeah, so I think I'm going to pass the ball to them as quickly as we can, because we want to hear them in conversation. But let me introduce the book. So besides me, you can see the cover. And I'm going to read you a short description so we know what we're talking about. The Land of Short Sentences. In the Land of Short Sentences, a young woman relocates to an outlying community in West Jutland, Denmark, and is forced to find her way not only in the bewildering environment of the residential folk high school where her partner has been hired to teach, but also in the inscrutable conversational forms of the local population. And on top of it all, there's a small matter of juggling her roles as mother to a newborn baby and advice columnist in the local newspaper. In this understated and hilarious novel, Stine Pilgaard conjures a tale of venturing into new and uncharted land of human relationships, dilemmas, and the ways and byways of social intercourse. So before we move to the questions, we thought it would be good to hear a little bit of the original in Danish and then a longer excerpt in English, because the prose is lovely. It's very readable in little bits as well, so I'm sure we're going to get a sense of the joyfulness of the book from Hunter and Stine. So if you please,
yeah.
You want to go ahead?
Yeah. Yeah. I will start, and thank you for making this arrangement today. Folk stopper op i Kvickly og laver mærkelige ansigter, mens de siger underlige lyde for at få kontakt med min søn. De stiller sig ved siden af os og begynder at tale igennem ham. Hvad hedder du, lille ven? Sikke nogle fine krøller. Er du med mor på indkøb? Nogle gange svarer jeg med en høj skinger babystemme, så min søn kigger overrasket på mig. Men som regel responderer jeg neutralt på hans vegne som en professionel booktaler. Min søn ser overbærende ud, som om det er en del af jobbet, men indimellem rynker han sin bryn, udspiler sine tykke kinder og ser sur ud. Jeg forstår ham godt. Det må være udmattende konstant at blive talt til som en blanding af kæledyr og pyntegenstand. De fleste kontaktforsøg bliver ledsaget af anekdoter, der handler om beskuerens egne børn eller børnebørn, deres nabos datter på samme alder, en nevø, som også snart fylder et år. Ældre mennesker smiler til mig, de smiler til sig selv som unge, de smiler til deres ægtefælle, som står usynligt og svejer i luften ved siden af mig. Helt unge piger lyser op, fyldt med uklare forestillinger om en fjern fremtid, der kortvarigt finder en form i min søns ansigt. Midaldrende mænd med halvstore drenge, som de snart ikke længere kan kalde børn, mærker den pludselige længsel efter en krop, man kan kaste op i luften og gribe igen til lyden af en fuldstændig forudsigelig latter. Det er den slags drømme og minder, der bølger imod os, og jeg forstår, at jeg for første gang i mit liv er blevet en, andre kan identificere sig med. At et barn aldrig bare er sig selv, men alle børn, der har været og vil komme. At et moderskab ikke er sit eget, men 1000 menneskers moderskab.
Thanks. So that was a section about motherhood and parenthood, and the changes people go through when they become parents is a big part of the novel. And so these two sections I chose are kind of on that same topic. People stop at the grocery store and make funny faces and strange noises to try to establish a connection with my son. They sidle up beside us and start talking right through it. What's your name, sweetie pie? What pretty curls you've got there? Are you out shopping with your mommy? Sometimes I answer them in a high, squeaky baby voice, and my son looks up at me in surprise. But as a rule, I respond neutrally on his behalf, like a professional ventriloquist. For the most part, my son tolerates this, as if it's a part of the job. But sometimes he wrinkles his brow, puffs out his fat cheeks, and looks up in exasperation. I sympathize. It must be exhausting to be spoken to constantly, like a cross between a house pet and a decorative object. The majority of these communiques digress into anecdotes about the observer's own children or grandchildren, their neighbor's baby daughter, or a nephew who's also about to turn 1. Elderly people smile at me. They smile at their own younger selves. They smile at their spouses who float invisibly in the air behind me. Adolescent girls light up, filled with intuitions of a distant future, which momentarily manifests in the form of my son's face. Middle-aged men with half-grown sons, who soon won't be able to be referred to as children any longer, are struck with the sudden longing for a little body that you can throw up in the air and catch again, to the entirely predictable sound of laughter. These are the sorts of dreams and memories that flow towards us. And I understand that for the first time in my life, I've become someone who other people identify with. That a child is never just a child itself, but all children who have been and will be. That motherhood is not one's own, but 1,000 people's motherhoods. So that was part of that section. And do you want to hear in Danish this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we can do it in date. Is it long?
It's about the same length.
Yeah, that's perfect. So let's do that.
So we do it in the same. Ja, okay. Vi tænker altid at det går over netterne frem og tilbage over gulvet, hvor vi synger sang og mere værdi. Vi har opfundet en særlig vuggesangsversion, hvor vi starter i højt hysterisk tempo, og så synger langsommere og lavere, indtil melodien toner ud i en svag hvisken. Vores søn fægter med hænderne og griner, men begynder at skrige i samme sekund, vi holder op med at synge. Selvom vi egentlig godt kan lide ham, er det allerede nu klart, at han bliver typen, der står helt oppe ved scenen, med fadøl i håret og råber ekstra nummer i en sanseløs ros, begejstret, utålmodig og ude af stand til at vente på noget. Vi drømmer om glade postkort fra vores søn, en ivrig stemme på Skype, billeder, hvor han står på bjerge eller sidder på en strand omringet af smilende unge mennesker. De få gange i løbet af foråret, hvor han sover, drikker vi portvin og surfer på nettet. Vi ser på billeder af tulipanmarker og kanaler, der slynger sig i ukendte mønstre gennem Amsterdam. Vi bliver glade. Vores kinder begynder at gløde. Vi forestiller os Heineken og Goudaost, vild sex på billige moteller. Tjek afgangen fra Hamburg, siger min kæreste, og jeg tror, at det går op for os på samme tid, da vi prøver at finde nogle rimelige togpriser i 2034. At vi tænker på vores søns barndom som en undtagelsestilstand. Et karneval, hvor vi er klædt ud med bizarre masker og danser rundt til fremmede rytmer. Vi havde forestillet os, at denne dans var konsekvensløs, at om 30 år ville vores søn indhente os, og så ville vi alle tre stå og grine ved målstregen. Skåle i langstilkede glas og se tilbage på hans barndom som en vild fest, man mindes med stor glæde og sorte huller. Med en pludselig og forsinket indsigt forstår vi, at vores søn aldrig vil indhente os, at når han er på vores alder, vil vi begge to være lidt over 60. Vi vil være trætte efter alle de år, måske endnu mere trætte end nu, selvom det er nærmest umuligt at forestille sig. Vi har sikkert købt en ødegård i Sverige og håber, at vores søn kigger forbi med sin familie i en forlænget weekend. Vi tager hans børn med ud og ser på elge, laver bål ved en sø og tæller hinandens myggestik om morgenen. Vores søn og hans kæreste vil sove fredfyldt i annekset, helt uden mere værdi, og når de tager hjem, vil vi smile til hinanden og føle os som denne ødegård. Nogen skubber støvsugeren på plads i et skab, tørrer krummer af bordene, stiller havemøblerne ind i skuret og folder dem sammen. Skodderne smækkes i, en eller anden tager en sidste runde, lukker døren til hvert enkelt rum, ser en rest af et spindelvæv, men overgår ikke at fjerne det. Vi kaster skygge i sen eftermiddagssol, en lås klikker, en glemt dukkevogn gemmer sig bag hybenbusken. Vi hører lyden af hjul i grus, en bil, der kører langsomt væk. Vi bliver en ensom ødegård, der forstår, at vinteren er på vej.
So this section, I should say that they have a lot of trouble getting their son to sleep, and they are suffering from insomnia. We always think that this will pass. These nights of pacing the floor and singing lullaby versions of leftist folk songs about worker exploitation and surplus value. We've come up with a special way of starting a song at a loud, hysterical tempo and gradually singing more slowly and quietly until the melody dies out in a soft whisper. My son flings his arm around and laughs, but he starts to scream the second we stop singing. Although we do, in fact, like him, it's already apparent that he'll be the type of guy who stands as close as possible to the stage, his hair soaked with beer, yelling for an encore in a senseless delirium, thrilled, impatient, and incapable of waiting for anything. We dream of happy postcards from our son, an eager voice on Skype, photos of him standing on mountaintops or sitting on a beach surrounded by smiling young people. On the few occasions over the course of the spring, when he's fallen asleep, we drink port wine and surf the internet. We look at images of tulip fields and canals that weave in unknown patterns through Amsterdam. We become happy. Our cheeks start to glow. We imagine Heinekens and Gouda cheese, wild sex and cheap motels. Check the departures from Hamburg, my boyfriend says. And I think we both realize at the same time, as we're trying to find some reasonably priced train tickets in the year 2034, that we regard our son's childhood as a temporary crisis, a carnival where we're dressed up in bizarre masks, dancing to foreign rhythms. We had imagined that there would be no consequences to this dance, that in 30 years, our son would catch up to us, and then the three of us would laugh together at the finish line, raise our long-stemmed glasses in a toast, and look back on his childhood like a wild party you remember with great joy and partial memory loss. With a sudden and belated insight, we understand that our son will never catch up to us, that when he reaches our age, we'll be a little over 60. We'll be tired after all those years, maybe even more tired than we are now, though that's almost impossible to imagine. We will probably have bought an old farmhouse in Sweden, and we'll hope that our son might stop by with his family from time to time for a long weekend. We'll take his children out to see the elk, make bonfires by the lake, and count each other's mosquito bites the next morning. Our son and his partner will sleep peacefully in an annex, completely devoid of surplus value. And when they go home, we'll smile to one another and we'll feel like an old farmhouse ourselves. Someone will stuff the vacuum cleaner into its place in a closet, wipe the crumbs from the tables, bring the patio furniture back into the shed, and fold it up. The shutters will be fastened, and one of us will make a final round, shut the door to every room, see the remains of a spider web, and not bother to remove it. Our shadows fall in the late afternoon sun. A lock clicks. A forgotten toy baby carriage hides behind the rose bush. We hear the sound of wheels on gravel. A car driving slowly away. We become a lonely old farmhouse that understands winter is on the way.
Great, thank you. It was wonderful. And I saw in the chat, other people also enjoyed hearing Stine read in Danish. And maybe somebody's responded in Danish, even if I think. I'm not going to read it out to you. I'm going to butcher it. So the first question actually perfectly fits with the passages you chose. So that's wonderful. I think it beautifully captured the way the book brings a theme of cyclicality into everyday life in a way that's very, very touching and I think expresses something of a shared humanity, even as we're incapable of understanding each other. We're in different phases of our lives. We mean different things to others than we mean to ourselves. There's this recurring theme, but through it, there's a sense that we have a shared humanity. And I think I saw in this book, I saw this very much reflected also in the Højskole, the culture that Stine describes, that they all seem to have this kind of frankness and compassion about this aspect of life, I feel, just in general openness with each other. And Hunter, you explain a footnote that Højskoles are quite mainstream in Denmark, that this is not some kind of fringe, subculture educational system. So I wonder in which sense this theme and this warmness that the book expresses is very Danish, in the way that Højskoles are very Danish. I don't know if this makes any sense, the question.
I think that, I think that one of the interesting things about the novel is, as you say, it really speaks to how everyone is goes through similar things, and yet someone can be so alone. Someone can look at the people at the grocery store and know these people are identifying with her, but she feels totally isolated in that community, and that's how this character does feel, and so I think that longing to be a part of the group might be sort of Danish. I think we all want to be a part of the group, right? But in Denmark, there's especially a group culture, and that's in the Højskole especially.
Yeah. Do you want me to explain about the Højskole thing?
Please, yeah, go ahead.
I got the inspiration because my boyfriend had a job as a teacher at a Højskole, and the special thing about Højskole is that it's not a school with exams and you have to show how intelligent you are. It's more like a place you go to get to know other people from other situations than your own. So there is this big motor of wanting other people. They really want to learn something from each other. This is good. But when I moved to the Højskole, I was not really a part of it. So it was a really funny position to be the spouse, the spouse of the teacher, because you are like always looking at the people making friends, but you are not really a part of it. So this position was really funny. I had this idea for the book because I have this experience I want to tell about now. But just when we arrived to the Højskole, there was a big party with all the students. And I went to the party trying to get some friends, and they were not at all interested in talking to me because I was only the spouse. Spouse, yeah, the spouse. So I went to the toilet because I didn't know what to do, just waiting for the time to go so I could go home. And then I heard some of the students talk about my boyfriend, and they were like really fascinated by him, and talked about his body, and they wanted to, do something sexual about it. And it was just a really funny position to sit at the toilet, like they could not see me, and to hear someone feel so close to your boyfriend, you know. So there was something really funny that they felt like a kind of ownership to him because he was a teacher. And I was like the person just looking at it. So I thought it could be a funny voice to work with because there was some aggression and some conflict, and also something really funny, living with a person that everyone at the place actually thinks that they own, because the students would always feel that they like owns the teacher. Does it make any sense for you?
Yeah, that's really funny that actually happened. I don't know if something like that happens in the book, but definitely, yeah, I can see that you.
Yeah, I use it. I mean, I use it as a kind of inspiration for a scene. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's funny. So they were actually. The strange thing is to see so many people being more intimate than you would expect with your husband, right, or your boyfriend.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In real life, I find it very funny because some of the students were really in love with him, and it was really cute, actually. But in the book, I tried to make it like a kind of conflict because it could give the plot, you know, some
Attention.
Yeah, attention. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that definitely came across. And so, do you think there's something Danish about that also? This thing that you described as just hypersociality, maybe, or I don't know what you would call it. This openness in general. Or maybe it's something specific about the schools. I don't know.
What about high school is Danish to you specifically?
They like to sing. We have this, you know, blue book with a lot of songs called the Højskole Songbook, and they just really sing a lot. Yeah.
I think singing is something that Danes do, definitely more, group singing.
Yeah.
It's something that Danes do much more than Americans. And as I understand it, the high school movement was part of kind of a national identity movement in the 19th century.
Yeah.
And singing was a big part of bringing people together and getting them to feel a sort of sense of the collective, basically, and to sort of forge a national identity.
Yeah.
So
we used to say that if you sing together, you cannot also fight, you know. What happens in your body when you sing the same song is that your heart starts to make the same rhythm. This is true. Yeah. So I think we believe a lot in, like, if you do the same thing in the same time, it shows that you really want to be a part of the group. So I think it's the way of show that we want. We are all a part of the same. Yeah.
Right, like the rituals of communality or something. I wondered that in the book you have a conflict between that, I guess, and the narrator who's excluded, right? And she does try to get to know the people she's living around, who do seem more closed. Actually, the village she's living in, the village the school is, or the town that the school is located in. How do you see that, this conflict between the creating a group and the outsiders, basically? How do you deal with the outsiders? Do you feel like in the book you could cover that? You have some way out of that, the possibility of exclusion through this, for instance, this group singing, or this extremely intimate these extremely intimate events that they have, where somebody might be present who's not part of the group. How do you get over that?
How do you deal with not being part of the group? Is
that exactly? I feel like in the book you actually
I think
bring kind of ways of doing that.
the narrator gets kind of angry, and she starts to create her own songs. So there's also 9 songs in the book where she tries to it's some of the songs are very funny and weird, and some of them are also, you know, trying to be nice at least, but she tries to
revolt.
yeah, she wants to make a revolt, because she finds it stupid to use all your actions to show, oh, we are part of the same group. So she wants to she wants to reveal the intention of always trying to do the same in the same time. But what I find personal funny about the højskole and the singing, in somehow I like it, because it's a way of trying to create peace in a group of people. It's really a nice thing to do, but it's also very stupid, because it's very as every human person is I mean, when you come to the world as a baby, you come alone, and when you leave life, you will leave alone. And sometimes I feel that we use all our life to tell ourselves, yeah, you're not alone, someone loves you, and if you act really nice, you can have some friends. You're not alone. But the fact is, we are alone. Every person is alone. So there's something really funny about trying to convince yourself that there's a big, deep meaning about everything. So I think it's in the gap between these two positions that I find my inspiration.
Yeah, you can see that. I just before I was rereading one of the letters sent to the fictional advice columnist, which was from a lonely girl. She was a child, and then the advice columnist, well, in her column she says, "Don't worry about it. It's fine to be alone. You know, you don't need to necessarily have friends." So it was a surprising response, but it's funny to see that next to this, you know, the group singing højskole students. So it's definitely visible there. And speaking of which, so we talked about the songs and now the advice columns. The book is, as was described also in a review, as a mixture of genres. I think that's right. There's you get really bite-sized chunks of narrative, song, advice columns, and I was wondering if you wrote them like that in short chunks, or maybe you wrote all the songs in one go. Could you tell us about how the writing process?
Yeah, when I write, I never have a plan. I try to be really curious every time I open my computer and try to write what feels right. So I don't have like a plan, and I always try not to have a plan. But my first idea was I would make a book who was based on letters and answers from advice columnists. So this was just my first idea, and then I had a new idea. I wanted to write something about driver lessons, learning to drive your car, and then I had a new idea about the højskole, and then I wanted to write some songs. So actually, maybe it's only just a sign of me being a very confused person. Actually, yeah.
Shimanto, I have one of these advice columns, if that would be nice for people to hear.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Go ahead. That would be nice. So you have the answer, the letter, and then the response.
Yeah, I have the letter and response. It's a bit on the longer side, but I think it's really nice.
You got it by it.
Yeah. We'll just do it.
Yeah, straight to English is good.
So the narrator of the novel, after her maternity leave ends, she gets a job with a local newspaper as an advice columnist, and this is one of, and they're interspersed throughout the narrative. And so this is one of them, and she's called the letterbox, is who they're addressed it to. Dear Letterbox, I'm writing with a dilemma I hope you can help me with. After having been happily married for 16 years, I've begun to have romantic thoughts about one of my neighbors. After a gathering with mutual friends, we became friends on Facebook and we started writing one another. It hasn't come to outright infidelity, but there's a spark between us that won't burn out. I'm deeply grateful for my wife and especially my children, but I'm blinded by my love. Do you think it will pass or should I get a divorce? Sincerely, the despairing one. Dear despairing one, let me tell you about my good, here's the response. Dear despairing one, let me tell you about my good friend Maria. Many years ago, she was on a cycling holiday with her boyfriend. She was happy that summer and she wanted to buy ice cream cones, one for herself and one for Rasmus. She was standing at an ice cream truck and looking at the flavors, chocolate, vanilla, mint, banana. She considered the toppings and the sprinkles and then looked up at the ice cream man. Then she froze. There was something about his eyes, something about his expression. They started talking and she forgot all about the chocolate, the vanilla, the mint, and the banana. They talked and talked as the line grew longer until the people at the end were getting hit by the waves down on the beach. Later on, Maria had no idea what they'd talked about. It was like their faces had talked to one another in a different language. She only remembered the sounds and the laughter. She went back to their campsite by the Baltic Sea, confused, with 2 ice cream cones in her outstretched hands. They were melting by the time she found Rasmus, and he smiled and said, "That took you a while." Maria nodded and wanted to cry. She was ready to run back to the ice cream man and throw everything away in one grand gesture. Little drops of ice cream dripped from Rasmus's chin, and Maria sat on a bench and ate hers in big bites. Then they sent postcards to their friends and took photos of one another laughing. A few days later, they traveled home. That was 11 years ago. Rasmus and Maria are happily married today, and they're expecting twins. All the same, the ice cream man still pops up in Maria's thoughts. This isn't supposed to be about me, and certainly not about Maria. But what I'm trying to explain is that we all have an ice cream man. They can show up in various guises and in the most unexpected places. Suddenly they're standing there in the costume of a melancholy doctor swabbing your throat, or a seasonal worker at your farmer's market. What can I do for you, they ask, with a smile, and you have an urge to say everything. Let me see your beautiful soul and give your darkness to me. You're trapped on an island. There's water all around you, and you know it's only a fata morgana you're seeing, an acid trip, a phantasmagorically long joint. At the same time, you have the feeling that it's the summer itself you're about to miss out on, a magical ice cream that will never melt. Dear despairing one, everyone has that phone number they lost one windy night on the way home from town. Everyone has felt the pangs of bad timing, like a stinging slap. Some of us are haunted by ice cream men. We hide from them, hoping they'll drift by. But love can appear out of nowhere, and although it can be impractical, it's not dangerous. Contrary to what most people think, situations like yours don't arise out of boredom, but rather a trembling jubilation. It is summer, the days are long, the nights are bright. We need our infatuations. And every single time, desire hits me like a cloudburst, that lustful madness that could love anyone at all. It is, above all, a muddled expression of joy that the world exists. Warm regards, the Letterbox.
That's great. I feel like the book also expresses this kind of, as a whole, expresses this sentiment. Very, very nice. I wonder, has either of you ever written a letter asking advice from a stranger who writes in a newspaper?
No, I didn't.
No?
No.
Have you read, sir?
I haven't.
No?
But I think these letterbox sections are really wonderful because in the other parts of the narrative, we experience the protagonist being very isolated and really struggling to reach the people around her, and also, wanting something from them that she's not getting. And in these letterbox sections, she's able to be herself in a way that maybe she isn't in real life. So
it's
so
a kind of portrait by her, actually. Yeah.
okay,
Ella,
like a
I guess.
self-portrait.
Yeah, but as you say, it's a way of getting to know her, where she's not so awkward and helpless. So it's a way for the reader also to get to know her past and her thinking. Yeah, so I think, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, we get to understand her much better, and she's giving the people write in with questions to the letterbox, and she often goes in tangents where she talks about her own life, and she's always saying, this isn't supposed to be about me, but here's a couple of pages all about me. And yeah, they're really a lot of fun.
I guess that's also why people read those kinds of columns, is you learn about yourself by reading about someone else, right? Like the person who wrote the letter doesn't even read the answer, but all the people who read the answer is somebody else's question.
Yeah, I've been a great reader of advice columns in my life, but have you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in common problems, because I think that most people actually in all world have maybe the same 5 problems. You know, how do we get along with our families? How do we learn to love ourselves? How to be a good parent? How to be a good friend? I mean, I think actually that we are quite alike, all people. So it's and it really get obvious in these personal dilemmas. Yeah, so I think actually that it's even though maybe it's banal. Yeah, even though it's banal, it's also existential in the same time. And I think that this is a very funny clash in somehow. Yeah.
And
it's funny that
I should just mention how many times after reading the novel I would be having conversations with people, and I would say, oh, well, we should just look in Stine Pilgaard's book because she's answered this question.
Yeah, it's funny because you do know the oracle, let's say, because she's a person usually in the newspaper, they're kind of anonymous, right? They don't necessarily, I think they don't usually have a picture. They seem to, oh, maybe I'm mistaken about that. But anyway, you see them as kind of this force that has the answers, right? When you write a letter to this columnist, whereas you know Stine, obviously, Hunter.
Oh no, I mean, we should look in her book for the answer. I actually have just met Stine today.
Well, 1 hour ago.
I met Stine 1 hour ago, but I've worked a lot with her books, so in a way I know her. But
well, that's interesting. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
People would talk about things like I just have had a child, and people would talk about things with child rearing, which is a big theme in the book, as we mentioned, like what sort of equipment do you need to have a child?
Yeah.
Is it necessary to have this object, this object, this object, or this object? And these are things which I think Stine talks about quite. I agree with what she thought, which is you should more, or what her protagonist thought, which is that you should just do things that work for you. But it's a big issue that we all deal with when we have children. And so
there is this automatical language about having kids, which I find very annoying, but also funny, especially when we have small kids. We used to, I experience that people, they start to, they start to whisper when they talk about small kids, and their voices are so serious while they're discussing, should they eat carrots or not carrots, So it's like very normal stuff discussed in an extremely serious way, while people look so serious. Yeah, and I find it like very funny, I guess, and I just wanted to to try to use this language to point out that it was funny, I guess.
It was funny and universal, and yeah, but you also said we're born and die alone.
Yeah, that's not funny. Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting though. You said we're born and die alone, but we're all having these same problems.
Yeah.
Along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the book kind of gives you a nice way. It gives you a nice way to connect to that in other people. The insurmountable distance with them, but at least when you're with them. But then in a book or an advice column, you can connect in a way that you can't maybe when you're with the person. Funnily enough, I feel like the book also captures that very nicely sometimes in different places.
Yeah.
And the issue that the protagonist of the novel has especially is that she wants to talk about personal matters, and the people in the community that she moves to don't want to talk about personal matters, really. And
they want to talk about the weather.
They want to talk about the weather. Yeah. And so I think one of the main themes of the book is just simply communication and how difficult it is, and how personally I'm a foreigner in Denmark, and I related to this book seeing a Danish person basically be a foreigner in Denmark, or feel like a foreigner in Denmark. That was
and maybe feeling alienated in a new place. Just look and think, oh my God, this is my life. I think it's a novel about everything being new, to be new in a landscape and in a village, but also this mother position is new, and being new in the traffic, how to act in a car, actually. So I feel I wrote this book with the feeling of being a kind of tourist in my own life, actually. It was like my main energy.
I get the sense when I read it that you feel, or the protagonist is sort of she's speaking a different language.
Yeah.
She's speaking from a different social set of expectations. And that can also be a sense you have as a foreigner, where you feel you're saying the words, but they're not being received the right way.
Yeah, there is some invisible codes that you don't really get, which is really lonely, I guess. Yeah.
Do you still live in because you yourself, as you said, you moved out to, I don't know if it's the same region of Denmark, but anyway, to outside of the town you grew up in with your boyfriend. Do you still live there?
No, we don't live there anymore. We are looking for
a cottage.
Yeah, a cottage there, but we had to move to Copenhagen because of work situation. But it was a really nice place to live. Yeah.
So you did get the feeling that you connected with it after some time.
Yeah. I think it's a book about parking, to find your place, to try to reach out for the people around you, and hope and believe that there can be a connection if everyone tries very hard at the same time, and it takes time. Yeah, I think also it's a novel about time, actually. I wrote it in my kitchen, and I could look out of the window at a mill. Yeah, a mill. Yeah, and I think it had a.
Oh, do you mean like a
windmill?
Like a wind
powered? Yeah.
Yeah. So a windmill, but for wind energy.
Right, like the ones in the book.
Yeah, exactly.
Not like the old one.
No. Yeah. So I think by looking at that all the time while I was writing the book, I think actually that it reminded me about time, because it's also like a big watch, and I think that this time and this feeling that life is so short and so fast, it came into the novel, and somehow that, and also you understand when you have a baby, it's like living with a little piece of time. You can really see it changes all the time. Every week it gets bigger, and you understand that death is very close and getting closer all the time. I was never thinking about that before, but it really changes my sense of time, I guess, to have a child, but also to look at this big nature watch every day. Yeah.
One of the things that I liked about the novel that felt really quite realistic to me was that the narrator doesn't really, or at least I don't think, doesn't have a big breakthrough necessarily, and doesn't make a bunch of friends and become suddenly the life of the party and, I don't know, then say, I love this place, you know what I mean? But it's sort of a journey towards acceptance of a situation in a way, which just seems really accurate in the sense of what it's like to move to a new place and sort of become okay with living there instead of having sort of this constant sense of isolation. And I think that has a lot to do with time and just giving things time. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. I think that well, I'm going to try and close this part of the talk, but I absolutely agree with that sentiment that it's neatly captured in the book, and what you said, Stine, about time. That it kind of offers a warm attitude towards that through identification with others. I think also, you have, and through connection. Whereas the confrontation with death and time can obviously also lead to despair, right? And I think the character and the events and all the different elements of the book point always towards a hopeful perspective on death while looking at death and time and the theme. But I'm gonna go to the audience's questions. We have a couple in the chat. Unless there's anything you still want to say.
Tina was asking if we should listen to the song.
Oh yeah, Could we?
Yeah.
Kyle, could we listen to the song?
Let me quick load it up. Have it ready.
The one with the nice one.
Yeah.
Oh, the English. Yeah.
Yeah. Hang on. Give me 1 second. Oops.
So we have a recording of Hunter's English translation of the song that Stine wrote to a melody of a Danish melody, right? Of the high school book.
Yeah.
And you can see it. It's up. Okay, I'll play it now.
Yeah, I can see it.
Translation.
Dear flatlands far from the sky, wild west of the north, like a night at dawn's first light, on my horse I venture forth, while I tilt at the windmill's hand, try to settle down. The windmill here never stands still, it pulls me all around. If you want to, you can learn to love the land of the short sentences, a language of water, earth, and wind.
Meet a future mom, a first-time mom.
I think we have a video of Leah Artelinde who's singing it and playing at the piano, but you can look that up on YouTube. I guess we heard the song, which gave us a good idea.
This song is the last piece in the book, and it's I was trying to make it to a kind of love song for the landscape and this little area that I met when I moved to what is called the land of short sentences. So my thought was that it should be a peaceful, happy ending. Actually, it's not a solution of everything, but it's a way of saying I find peace with my life just now. For now.
For now, yeah.
Right. And Judith's question actually kind of relates to this. She says that she absolutely loved the sense of humor and often had to laugh out loud while reading a book. And she wondered if you also had a lot of fun while writing it, Stine.
If I had a lot of fun?
Yeah.
I always have a lot of fun about many things because I'm always looking for something who can give me hope in this life. So yeah, I had a lot of fun, but I was also actually I'm always crying a lot when I write because I get so I come into you told me about this little girl 11 years old who writes to the letterbox, and you know, it was just me creating a question, but sometime after I felt so bad for this little girl, and I was really sad that she felt this way and that she was so lonely, but in the same time I made her up myself, so you can say my emotion got really doubled up many times, and sometimes it's really nice and sometimes it's really sad because I have to go into other person's loneliness or sadness or tragedies to write about it. So really sometimes I just cry when I write, but many times I also is laughing in the same time. So it's very emotional for me to write. Yeah.
If even while you're writing it has this effect, that must mean that it works, that your characters are, you know, real flesh and blood. They managed to reach you. Did you have the same Hunter? Do you, while you translate, do you have emotional moments?
I didn't cry, but I did laugh a lot, and I did feel a great deal of sympathy for the narrator and the people who were writing into the letterbox. But I had a lot of fun translating this one and Stine's other book, which is coming next year. Yeah.
And are you working together on this? Do you, while you translate, are you communicating about any questions, or do you do that after you've translated?
Obviously, my English is not impressive, so I don't think I can help Hannah a lot.
All right.
we haven't been working together at all, really. I guess Stine has given sort of a lot of trust in the idea that I can make a good translation.
Yeah.
So rightly so.
We've just met.
Yeah, it's funny you don't seem that way. Maybe you met through the book.
Oh, we did that, definitely. Yeah. At least I met you.
Yeah.
This is another question for Hunter. What did you find the trickiest to translate in the novel from Misha?
Hi, Misha. I think translating these Lailil song or occasional songs was really difficult because my goal was to make the song lyrics fit into the Danish melody and also rhyme and also retain the meaning that Stine had written. So that took a long time, and that was a challenge. And also just trying to, the book is really, really funny, and trying to have it be that funny in English as well, both in terms of what's being said and the timing. That could be a challenge.
Mm.
And could you talk a bit about your translation process in general? How you go about it?
I just try to do every sentence the way that I would want it to be, ideally. So I know some people go through and make a really rough draft and revise that, and I should say this is the first novel I've translated, so my process might change. But I try to make it as perfect as I can get it and then move on. And of course, that all changes during the editing process. But that's what I do.
Does it help you that your wife is Danish?
Learning conversational Danish and has helped me a lot in terms of I think it would be, I think just having lived in Denmark helped a lot in translating the novel. I think if I just took schools and classes in an academic setting, some of the sort of nuances would be more difficult. Definitely.
That's good to know for people who are interested in translation, like maybe Misha Hoekstra might be. Thanks for the question, Misha. We have a question.
Misha's a translator. Misha.
Oh, my apologies. Right. Okay. So the next question from Helene is okay, this is a thematic one. I think this is a question to the both of you. Whoever feels like answering, you can have a conversation about this if you want. Is the alienation the main character feels in the Højskole like a metaphor for Danish culture in general? Everybody trying to be part of the community and behave like everybody else. I wonder, maybe this makes more sense for somebody who knows Denmark, as you spoke to in the beginning.
Is the alienation, are you trying to say something about Danish society? The alienation the protagonist feels at the Højskole, is that a comment about conformist culture here?
No, when I write, I don't have a big plan about what I want to say. And I think that every reader has their own interpretation and their own experience about life, so they will understand everything different, which is fine. So it's not it's not a statement. Maybe some of the letterbox are a little bit statements, but the novel is not. Actually, it's most of all a story of trying to grow up, of being adult in a small society very close to the sea. Yeah.
Right. Okay, I think that's it. I think we've had all the questions from the Zoom chat. If there's no more questions, I think we can close it here. Is there anything else you wanna touch on? Between anything?
Thank you for hosting this. Thank you, Shimanto, for moderating.
No problem, my pleasure. And thank you, Hans and Stine. It was wonderful. It was very interesting to hear perspectives going out and inside the book. I absolutely loved it. This enriched the reading experience even more. I might go back to the book with knowing how it came about and what you think about it. I think it's a wonderful expression of hope in the face of, well, not just death and time, but also simple things like awkwardness and little social slights, which can feel just as serious. So you can get it at your local bookstores. If you can't, ask them to order it. It's been out since a week, so I'd ask everyone to get a copy and read it.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Hunter and Stine, for this wonderful conversation. We hope to have you back next year when the next book comes out. Thank you so much for moderating. And the audience, thank you so much for tuning in. We are starting to open up more fully at Scandinavia House in New York, but we will be continuing these virtual discussions as well, because we know the audience is not necessarily in New York. So we hope to see everyone again soon, either in the virtual world or in real person. And thank you again, everyone, for coming. And thank you, Hunter and Stine, for your wonderful work. Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.